Hi, this is Kimberly. This is a synopsis and a critique of Chapter 23 of the book Letters from Christopher, Tragic Confessions of the Watts Family Murders by Shanann I. This chapter is titled Reflections from Christopher. I want to take y'all on this roller coaster ride with me. I'm mad at myself by getting taken in by this scribble. See what happens when I get sick? My spidey senses go all off kilter, and I allow myself to be led down the garden path, as my late mom would say. She also used to say when she was feeling under the weather, or if she had a hangover or something, that she felt like she had been pulled through the hedges backwards. That's where I am at right now. I've got this crazy upper respiratory mess going on with a headache that feels like my head is in a vise. But back to where I got snowed by Mrs. Scribble. That's scribe and caddle put together. It's my new word for her. This is how my summary was originally. I'll let you know when I came back to my senses. I began, finally. We get to the part of the book where she's been promising us. I'm tired of going over Discovery again, although I guess it was good to brush up on it. Caddle quotes Chris here throughout the entire chapter. I wish she had been more descriptive of if it was phone, in person, a letter, Morse code, carrier pigeon. She calls them, quote, informal conversations. Is one able to have a formal conversation with an inmate? And if so, is it black tie formal wear required? And won't you get messy in that vending machine room? Chris says pretty much his life stopped at age 34. He, quote, lost his family, friends, job, house, everything that mattered. No, asshole, you didn't lose it. You demolished it. You have ripped out heart after heart after heart and stomped on them. Hey, I know. Why don't you write to Dave Baumhover's wife and ask her how you have disrupted her and her husband's lives forever? What about all those people that had to go to Survey 319 and witness and deal with that indescribable nightmare and had to clean up after you? You disgust me. You don't even think past yourself and how you were feeling. Why does Chris always act like he's a scaredy cat bystander? I was surprised to hear Chris say that he and Shanann weren't meant for one another in this chapter. I suppose he's still mooning over Nikki. He claims he does not want to come across as though he's blaming Shanann. He says he was overwhelmed by her beauty when they met, and that he was not true to himself because of it. He could not relax and be himself. Well, what is yourself, Christopher? Tell us. I wish Mrs. Scribble would have asked him, who is Chris Watts? If you wanted to break out of that shell, you're supposed to start small. Like you should have hung that picture on the wall while they were in North Carolina. You could have gotten one of those huge pictures with the black velvet painting with a plywood frame. If I say Elvis paintings, I'm sure you can picture it in your mind. Only instead of Elvis, you could have picked out a gaudy NASCAR representation. I guarantee you would have felt like a bad, bad boy. But yes, you start small finding yourself. Your 6 weeks alone would have been a great way to spend your time. Finding yourself, not having a dirty, sweaty, torrid love affair, then secretly poisoning your wife, finally killing your entire family. That's not how you find yourself. Were you being yourself with Nikki? I just have no words for you. Chris again further into the chapter laments about losing his family, as though it was a tragic accident instead of a monster preying on its victims. Then he says, quote, it's the most horrible thing I could ever do, and I'm still saying it was not my mind or my hands that did this to them, but the hands and mind being controlled by something evil. I hope people will believe me, end quote. God almighty. Okay, so whatever happened to being controlled by Shanann? So you never, ever had a mind of your own? You've never been in control of your ugly self? So let me get this straight. Life was beautiful, you say. You say in this chapter that your wedding day was the happiest day of your life. Shanann was gorgeous beyond belief in your eyes. Life was good. Everything revolved around the children. And then you lost, in your words, your family because you were being dominated by something sinister. Chris talks about his and Shanann's first date going to a theater. Mr. Genius thought they were going to a movie theater and showed up looking like a slob, and Shanann was dressed to the nines. He was afraid he wasn't going to get another date. Oh, how I wish Shanann would have run for the hills, like her damn pants were on fire. This idiot has no communication skills, does he? And he's dumber than a rock to think he could, quote, be himself with Nikki. No, she controlled your ass too. And she told you you were being yourself and all open and shit because she set her sights on you and she was going to have you. And then what? Would you end up killing her too eventually for being bossy? When one is as much of a wimp and a dumb fuck, I'm sure everyone seems intimidating. Chris is used to being told what to do and then doing it, never deviating. I want to know what his childhood was like, really like. I hope one day we can find out if he was born like this or something warped him along the way to adulthood. Chris said he was proud and excited to spend 6 months' salary on Shanann's engagement ring. She loved it, and they were just happy, happy, happy. I think they truly were at one time. I see that unmistakable goofiness on their faces in older pictures. He claims their wedding day was the happiest day of his life. And of course he was blown away by her exquisite beauty on that day. And I agree, Shanann was a stunning bride. She was stunning, period. And then this quote left me speechless. When I think back on what was said, I still cannot believe I lost my whole family, a family that I wanted my whole life. It's the most horrible thing I could ever do. And I'm still saying it was not my mind or my hands that did this to them, but the hands and mind of being controlled by something evil. I hope people will believe me. He's serious, isn't he? First, that he lost them, and then that it's not his fault. He was being dominated by a diabolical existence or being. Is that what numbnuts is trying but failing miserably to explain? And this was a bit shocking to me. He admits he's a candy-ass coward chicken shit. Not in so many words, but he does admit to failing to have the courage to stand up to his wife. He actually said, quote, that he failed to rise to the occasion. This is what he said, quote, I needed to rise to the occasion and be a man, to help my wife see that she could not control everything and everyone around her, and if she couldn't come to terms with that, then split. I was not able to confront the situation, though. I could not go to Shanann and tell her my feelings, end quote. Bingo, dumbass. This is what you should have been working on, instead of running around acting like a horny teenager. You had a baby on the way and you were about to lose your house. Shanann was desperate for you to tell her what was going on in that peanut head of yours. You could have listed the house for sale, even started packing to move, enrolled the children in a more affordable part-time school. You should have pulled up your Thomas the Train underwear and started practicing being the man of the house. I think Shanann would have been all wooed by that, by you being all manly and stuff. Just like how Scarlett O'Hara was turned on when Brett Butler would stand up to her. She probably needed a break from wearing the pants, but you should have told her why you were losing interest in the marriage. Running away is not an option, especially when you have kids. This is what you've been training for your whole life, being an adult, and the fucking solution you came to is fucking insane. And now you are in timeout the rest of your life, and taxpayers have to pay for your sorry ass. I think you should beg to be put in general population, get a 12-cent an hour job within the prison, and pay back as much restitution as you can for the hours upon hours others have had to spend cleaning up the ghastly and revolting mess you made, because you are a knucklehead, dumbass, chicken shit piece of shit. And these words, rising to the occasion, don't sound like they would come out of the same lion mouth that was on the front porch telling lies to the media and using the word like repeatedly. But Chris in this chapter expresses regrets, it seems, in not being what I would call an equal partner. No one told you to cower in the corner and act like a sissy. He says he was afraid to talk to Shanann. Well then, it makes sense that someone had to take charge of your household, you bonehead. If you're going to act like a child, you naturally will get treated like one. Again, this is what Lunkhead says, quote, I needed to rise to the occasion and be a man, to help my wife see she could not control everything and everyone around her, and if she couldn't come to terms with that, then split, end quote. I almost laughed thinking of him trying to say that out loud. It's very sad, actually, Chris's lack of social and communication skills, claiming he wants to be himself, but he didn't have a clue how to. Then it came to light that he's a covert narcissist, chicken shit family annihilator. But he won't accept that. He was controlled, he said, by evil, by darkness, by Shanann. He seems to draw the line at and refuses to accept responsibility for himself and his actions. This really surprised me that I read in the chapter, quote, "My dad misses Shanann and the girls so much, both of us do," end quote. Chris says he didn't want the big house with the hefty mortgage payment, but he says he couldn't tell Shanann no, and he wanted her to be happy. He talks about the friend of Shanann's, the woman that Shanann was briefly a nanny for. They lived in her basement for over a year when they moved to Colorado. Chris said at some point Shanann and this woman had a falling out, and he never saw or heard from her or her husband again. He doesn't know why or what it was about. Well, why the hell didn't you ask, dumbass? Normally married people talk to one another. Chris talks about being housebroke, about Shanann overspending and how they never had any money. How do people with no money jet around the country on back-to-back trips? I know Thrive paid for some of the expenses, but I don't think they paid for all of them. I've looked up the Lavelle site before. It depends totally on your own sales and recruits during a certain time period, and the same for your downline. So he talks about no money, no decision-making power, and that Shanann would throw extravagant parties. And then I picture Chris doing a parlor trick during one of these parties, sitting on the pristine carpet in the formal living room, scooting his bare ass across the carpet, acting out from his anxiety of anticipating an adult conversation. He wasn't allowed to work out, he says, and that Shanann asked him to stage photos like she was going out jogging with him. This sounds like some shit that Cadle and Fuckface made up while they were sitting there in the vending room. He admits to lying to Hickey and to other people, saying that he and Shanann had discussed separating. He said she was totally blindsided by him wanting to, as he calls it, separate. He acknowledges that he only started sleeping in the basement after returning as a family from North Carolina. He discloses that he was being a mean prick to her, so he wouldn't have to talk to her about all the things he was chicken shit about. Perhaps he should have had his mother write her a note. He claims that he was able to be himself around Nikki, and he couldn't do that with his own wife. I call bullshit on that. They barely knew each other. Chris himself has said he was happy with life before he started the affair. Yes, I'm sure the money situation was stressful. But again, why were people flying on trips all over the place? That's really expensive. And the kids going to a crazy expensive school. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around this malarkey. They should have handed their paychecks and bills to me. I would have had this shit straightened out in a few months. This is what happens when one spouse has their head in the sand and the other has their head in the clouds about the family finances. He said he wanted to separate because Shanann was so bossy. Don't tell me she didn't show any of that bossy side before you got married. And I'm sure the meeker you got, the bossier she got. But someone has to assume the role of authoritarian and take charge. It's the yin and yang and the to and fro bullshit. Did you even know Shanann was bossy before Nikki told you? And did Nikki also tell you that you were unhappy? You claim you don't like bossiness, but I see that thing rearing its ugly head in this doomed-to-fail new relationship, too, with Nikki. She was playing you, dude, like a fiddle. I assume y'all were into role-playing. Well, she was letting you be the big, strong man right up until she was walking down the aisle. Then she was going to snap your ass right back into place. I guarantee it. Chris says Shanann was keeping him from his family, and he was caught in the middle and yada, yada, yada. But she was actually trying to reach out to them and repair it. She was talking to her friends about it because you wouldn't talk to her about it, and because she knew she had gone too far this time with your family. She had already sent your parents a sonogram text that they ignored. I'm the type of person, well, I feel like this shit needs to be solved on the spot. It involved all of you speaking to one another. I would have taken Shanann to your parents' house and talked it out. It could have been done on a 2- or 3-way phone call, too, depending on how many people were actually involved. You could even use a mediator. Start with an email. Damn, there were so many ways to get this ball rolling. I'm pretty sure you could have gotten Shanann to cooperate because she was desperate to be close to you again. Either way, it was going to be fixed again eventually. You all did this time and time again. I've seen some very nice photos of Shanann and your parents getting along nicely after the wedding fiasco. I know this because Bella and Cece are in the pictures. So it could have been fixed. Heavens to Betsy, you weren't showing any initiative. You know, it's Shanann this and Shanann that. She would be bossy and my sister and her would fight and her and my mom and wah, wah, wah. Like a baby, you go on. Chris whines about Shanann and his family not getting along. Quote, I felt thrown in the middle all the time, and I just wanted all of us to get along, end quote. Well, Chris, I mean shithead. I know a lot of people that would like to throw you down the middle of an interstate at 3 a.m. when people are driving home from the bar drunk. The common denominator is you, Christopher. You needed to stop being a pansy ass. Look where it's gotten you. You were always going to be caught in that cycle unless you got strong, not just a body, where you overpowered your pregnant wife and 2 very little girls. Can you not see that Nikki was going to fall into that similar kind of pattern eventually? Quote, I had been thinking about killing my family. I didn't want to, but I knew I was going to do it. I did not realize I would feel anger because I didn't know what it felt like. I just knew there was something in me that felt like it was controlling me. There was a feeling of something dark around me, end quote. Damn, Cadle, did you always just let him ramble on about this, or did you ask questions? For example, was he alarmed with his thoughts? Did it occur to him to seek professional help on the double? Chris Watts claims he doesn't blame Shanann, but yes, he kind of is. Or he has a lot of anger towards her. I just hate it when people say their wedding vows without listening to them and absorbing them. It's almost like until I get sick of the sight of your face and someone who I deem better comes along. Then he says he doesn't blame Sticky either and that she's a victim. But coincidentally, when he started hooking up with her is when he started thinking about killing his family. My God, man, did alarm bells not go off in your head? You couldn't have texted your dad? I know y'all don't like to talk out loud. You could have said something along the lines of, Dad, I've started an affair and I think I'm in love and I've begun to have some unsavory thoughts about harming Shanann and the kids. Please help me and don't tell Mom. I'm very confident he would have talked some sort of sense into you and would have advised you the proper way of getting rid of your family with them still being alive and free to go on and enjoy life without you. Things would have simmered down eventually. Chris claims he felt the presence of a demon, but not in the religious sense, and he was having visions of sorts. Is there not someone you can call for a problem like that? Hey, I know a priest. You could have had an exorcism. I want to know, did it scare you? I wish I knew the questions that Cadle Scribe asked him, if any. Jesus Christ, man, if it stresses you out to that degree about Shanann telling you to tell your parents they can't see or talk to the kids anymore, you could have folded your arms across your chest and said, no, make me. There's a thing called being defiant. You could have tried some of that. You could also assume the defiant stance. Put your hands on your hips and refuse to cooperate further. You could have practiced in front of the mirror while you had the house to yourself. Hanging that picture on the wall would have made you feel all powerful and stuff. So, while I was making my notes on this chapter, I kept having a nagging feeling that I just could not identify. A lot of this chapter sounded so familiar to me. Why is that? Did I hear it in one of Scribble's interviews? Did she already speak of it in the book? Damn it, I hate when I do this, 'cause I just cannot go on. I have a disability called CRS, can't remember shit, and I couldn't remember where I had seen and heard all of this before. I just could not let this go why the shit sounded so familiar. So now that I'm practically a gumshoe, I wasn't going to stop until I found out just why it sounded so familiar. Remember when Dieter was showing Nikki around the house? Making sure she saw all the pictures of the lovely family, and she got all jealous and shit and stormed out to her truck, sat there texting Chris like a teenager. That was probably it. So I kept on looking. I read that chapter again, and it was that chapter where Dieter was laughing at NK after he orchestrated her meltdown. And then no, I finally found it. It was Detective Baumhover's report. Of course. Silly me, I thought Cadle put this chapter together herself. And that's what pissed me the fuck off. What exactly did she do towards putting this book together, besides the big copy-paste bullshit? It was from when Baumhover talked with NK on September 4th, 2018. Discovery page 1059. Why did I believe her when she had some informal conversations with Chris? Some of it, a very minute part of it perhaps, but a large portion of this stuff he told Nikolai, and Hickey shared it with Detective Baumhover, containing notes of events she recalled since her last meeting with another agent. Baumhover says that the events documented reportedly occurred between June 25th, 2018 through August 13th, 2018. I now get why it took me so long to find it. Apparently this was scanned in, possibly as a JPEG file, into the Discovery, and it wasn't showing as searchable text, because it was a photo of sorts. Whenever will I stop doubting what I know in my heart to be true? Boom, just like that, I found nearly the entire chapter. This time, NK wrote it. Please, woman, cite your sources, Mrs. Scribble. So this is where Crybaby blabbed all of his and Shanann's business to NK. It's similar to when, as a child or a teenager, and you're at your friend's parents' house, and you tell your friend's parents that you wish they were your parents because you were horribly mistreated at home. Grow up here, Chris. I'll tell you why I didn't give up searching for this. It's because it was too well written. That made me crazy suspicious. And I now know it's because Nikki wrote it. And I've seen from her work emails that she knew how to come across as professional when the occasion called for it. I'll be glad when I'm done with this book, really. And here I thought we were getting some stuff hot off the press. I don't think I like the integrity or the like thereof of this woman that wrote this book, or claims to have written this book. One could still say it was hot off the press, and that NK presented Detective Baumhover with a 7-page typed document that she generated. It appears, and I use that term loosely, but it appears Cadle the Scribe may have peppered it up with some conversations with Chris Asshat Watts. Someone asked me why I refer to Miss Kessinger as Nikki. Simply, it's because that's how it is in the book, which I assume is how Chris Watts referred to her with Mrs. Scribble. I'm going to read Detective Baumhover's notes in a separate video. It's pretty eye-opening stuff. A lot of it sounds just like it would be too hard to make up. The part I'm talking about is the inconsistencies NK was getting from Fart Face. He can't keep a lie straight to save his life, and I can see why Mrs. Cadle formed a farce. I mean a kinship with Chris. I'm still mad at myself for believing Mrs. Scribble finally wrote a chapter for herself. I tend to believe the good in people until proven otherwise. I'm just let down by this whole thing. I thought she wrote a fucking book. No, she wrote a letter to Chris Watts. I am now questioning if she even spoke to him on the phone or in person. If she had, I feel like there would have been more in this book than copy-paste. We do still have a couple of chapters to go, so let's see. It takes me a while to lose faith in someone, and now the deed is done. I don't trust her. I don't believe her. Some of you may have seen a video on J for Justice's channel regarding some alleged text between Mrs. Scribble and Chris Watts' sister. I'll link that video in the description. Mrs. Scribble says those texts were altered. And who knows, someone is lying. I just don't know who it is. Just make your own informed decision. Chris then tells about a creepy letter from a creepy woman he got, where this woman claims to have been dreaming of Bella. It's very insulting to Bella's memory, and she told Chris he doesn't need to worry anymore because she is in heaven and happy. Yes, I know that. This after saying Bella was dripping with gasoline in the dream. Really? What in God's green earth is wrong with people? You know what, lady? Fuck off. Bella is very dear to my heart. All of Chris Watts' victims are dear to my heart. So please don't. Just don't. Fuck out of here with your bullshit. Why was this shit even put in the book? I'm gonna link my favorite video of Bella. It just melts my heart. She had achieved breaking the habit of sucking her thumb. She was so proud of herself. I can't play it here, but I'll put the link in the description below. She was being rewarded with some hair clips that she asked for. I cry every time. Here is a quote from Chris Watts, showing that he is still delusional and probably always will be. Quote, My life, for all intents and purposes, was over, and then I received a letter that lit a fire in me. I was told God could still use me, and that I could help others. Maybe I could reach those who were planning on doing something as horrendous as I did and offer them a way of hope. I could help save lives that way and serve for the rest of my life. End quote. If Chris Watts really could help others, that would be amazing. One can always hope. So, Discovery pages 1058, 1065 comprise not only this chapter, but also Dieter's chapter from earlier in the book. It pisses me off that she quotes it as if it came from conversations or letters between herself and Chris Watts. It didn't. It came from our trusty Discovery document. There are still well over 1,000 pages she hasn't used yet, enough for another 3 or 4 more books, mind you. The chapter ends with this, quote, I hear my baby's voice every day as she tried to stop me from killing her, end quote. Chris, I hope that haunts and torments you until you take your last breath. And that will be the end of this video. I will pick up with chapter 24 in the next one. Much love and peace. Thank you for listening.